Oh my god, I just can't even. Hello and welcome to my review of Sunrise on the Reaping. It's here, we're all here together. Let's find out what we thought, but you already know what I thought. But anyway, let's just talk about it. First and foremost, if you're unfamiliar with this series, Sunrise on the Reaping follows the story of Haymitch Abernathy, who we first see in the Hunger Games trilogy, and this book is about his Hunger Games and how he becomes the victor. So this is the 50th Hunger Games that we are in right now, and it's a spectacular. This time they decided to pull double the amount of victors. That's right, double. Just let that sink in. So that being said, this is about Haymitch's story and how he becomes the person we see in the Hunger Games. And let me just give you one spoiler right now. It is heartbreaking. But let's go into the more analytical little points that I've got. So this feels very young. Okay, she has not, when I say she, the author Suzanne Collins has not adapted this book for the people who have aged with the original trilogy. She has very much kept it in line with the audience that the original trilogy was geared at, which is very YA. So if you're expecting more, don't. Equally, this is very much book one, the original trilogy, rewritten, okay? She doesn't stray from her formula. It is very much the same of a dramatic reaping, an awful capital, intense propaganda, and fallen into a rebellion. That's what we've got going on. And as some of the reviews on Goodreads say, it does feel like it's more for the fans than it is to enhance the world. It doesn't give us anything new or any new bits of information, but it's great nonetheless, so, you know, just bear that in mind. And I'm not in the fandom, alright? I love the original Hunger Games. I was reading it as it first came out. I have read Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes, and I've seen them filmed multiple of times, but I'm not in the fandom, okay? So I didn't really get a lot of the gripes that other readers on Goodreads had, because I didn't remember really what happened in Mockingjay and what was mentioned about Haymitch's story and what wasn't. Whereas I think if you're really in the fandom and you know these key pieces of information, you may get slightly irked by this book, because a lot of people just thought it was a money-grabbing scheme because she's just repeating the same story that she's already told elsewhere. But I disagree, okay? I really liked it. Let's get into the actual review and I will tell you why I really liked it. Starting off with the world, okay? It is just like stepping into familiar, comfortable shoes that just age better with time. This world, oh, I love it. It's so unique, and every single time I read it, watch it, anything about it, I'm jealous that I didn't make this world, because it's amazing. Like, it's the world we know and love, right? And it's nothing too drastically different, but it's still so interesting to see the dynamics. And I guess the difference is this is 25 years before, or 24 years, I guess, if you're counting book one, before Katniss is Games. And so there's been so many technological advancements in Katniss's one, and that even so from Ballads of Songbirds and Snakes, that was the 10th Games. These have developed and developed again. So it's very interesting to see how the game started and how they've carried on to where they are when we see them in like the Hunger Games and Catching Fire. And one thing I have to say about Collins's writing is she just knows how to write. It's her world building is so simple, but just so detailed, but not overwhelming at the same time. And I don't know if that's because I already have the additional context of reading the original trilogy, but this was great. And one thing I have to say as well is she foregrounds really good. So you don't have to have read the first Hunger Games trilogy or even the Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes to read this one. Obviously it helps and you see the parallels, but you really don't need to, because she adds in that context. So we're moving on to the plot now. Some people on Goodreads were angry. So on Goodreads, it's got like a 4-star review or something. But I tell you, those 1 and 2 stars, and maybe even those 3s, they are passionate about what they're saying. So some of these guys thought that this should have followed Haymitch after the games, and in his more mentoring role rather than his tribute role, because they argue that we got a decent amount of his backstory during the original trilogy from what he tells Katniss. But I disagree. The reason why this book was so beautiful and so heartbreaking was it was told from the perspective of a 16-year-old Haymitch who has not yet been broken by the world, and thus you see how he gets broken and how he ends up as that alcoholic and depressed man in the Hunger Games Book 1. That being said, this book could have been longer, because I do agree that it would have been spectacular to see the mentoring, politics and situation. So seeing what it's like from a mentor's perspective for the Hunger Games. So we've seen the tributes, we've seen what it's like when they get reaped, when they get selected, or when they're on that train, when they're going through training and the selection and the scoring process and the interviews, but we don't actually understand what it's like from the mentor's perspective to put so much time and effort into these tributes and know that only one of them is going to make it out alive, and then just do that over and over and over again for a system that you don't believe in. I think that would have been really good, but I'm happy with what we've got regardless. And who knows, maybe that's coming. What I really liked, and I don't know if this was just luck because she'd already written book 1 or if this is how it was meant to happen anyway, but just how many parallels there are between Katniss and Haymitch and just how similar they are. It just shows a much deeper connection that you don't quite get otherwise. And he is effectively seeing his life and his experiences replayed over and over again to him through what Katniss is going through, and I found that dynamic so interesting, and I've just got a little bit more of a deeper respect for it. Generally, I think very much like in Catching Fire, the games are very secondary, and even in Ballad of Songbirds, to be fair, like the games are over like that. There's not enough detail, I would say, about them. That's why I think this book could have been a lot longer. I didn't feel that much thrill or anticipation or worry or nerves. Obviously, we know he survives in the end, but there wasn't that much build up to being in there, and I didn't really care about any of the deaths that happened bar one. Despite there being double the tributes, there really isn't double the drama. Like, there isn't anything of great significance that happens in those games. Okay, so characters wise, I really didn't care about Lenore Dove, right? She just really irked me, and she had way too much screen time considering she wasn't like actually in the screen, if that makes sense. So Haymitch referred to her quite a lot, and I thought it was really sweet that she was his guiding light, but I feel like it also could have worked if it was his mum or his brother being that guiding light, but she was just in it a bit too much. That bit was just a bit too similar of the Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes, and a bit too, like, we've done that now, let's do something else. As I just mentioned, the character deaths were just underwhelming, bar like 1 or 2. But that being said, the plot twist around Lulu was very interesting, and if you've read it, you will know what I'm on about. And please leave some comments down below or DM me on Instagram to discuss more. Do you know what? And I just loved young Haymitch. He is such a polar opposite of adult Haymitch that the contrast was just massive. He was just so naive to the world and just kind of fell into this situation, and it was very interesting to see how he navigates it and what he does with it. And generally, I really enjoyed all the cameos. A few of the reviews on Goodreads just said, oh, she's just putting these names and name dropping them for no reason and they don't come back up again. But I feel like that's pretty natural when you're like building up an experience. Feel like they just, to me, they worked really naturally and I liked them, and I just thought it was really nice to see these characters that we see when they're 25 years older through a different lens, and like what they were like when they were younger. It was really cool. Overall then, this is absolute fan nostalgia that I love. But that being said, it was a good book, regardless. The writing was really well done. The pacing was very good. The world building and the context that you get given was top notch. And the characters were really lovely as well. My only gripe is just that there wasn't enough drama about the games aspect of it. And there could have been a lot more done, considering that there was so many more tributes. I feel like half of them all just got killed off, and that's it. That nothing else happened, and Haymitch was very much on his own for a lot of the games. And as I mentioned, I'm not really in the fandom, so I don't really pick up on much of the gripes like the other people did. Don't let the Goodreads reviews dissuade you from this, because Sunrise on the Reaping honestly was one of the best books I've read this year, and I am so excited for the film next year. I'm so excited! But yeah, that's my review of Sunrise on the Reaping. Thank you very much for watching.